G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 21st of December 2025. As the war continues, I've made a few predictions and a few statements. None, of course, have been disputed. I've been called many names. I've had people tune out, but nobody has proven me wrong. And today, it's an "I told you so" moment. I've been saying Europe has been trying to undermine Trump, but I'm not the only one. But finally, somebody inside the administration has said it. Tulsi Gabbard has come out and said the EU warmongers are undermining peace efforts by President Donald Trump. And we'll get more to that later, but first, the map. Now, this is where a lot of people tune out because apparently it's triggering to some people. Yes, triggering. Because they cannot handle the truth. Russia's launched opened up a new front in Sumy. They've already seized their first town in less than 24 hours. Sveti has fallen to the Russians within a few hours, only after a few hours of fighting. Though in other areas there's barely any movement. But there is sporadic fighting across the northern Ukrainian border. The fighting continues in Kupiansk and surrounding areas. As we head south towards Lyman, there is little progress, if any, but once we get to Lyman itself, the Russians have made huge gains in the last 24 hours. And you can see they are continuing their efforts and made some progress north of Chevyshyar. No new progress at Kodsk, but they did seize land yesterday. Nothing really to report here. That Russia has seized some land, but it's in the Pavlovsk area, but it is minimal. They continue their death trap operations, luring Ukrainians into the railway station for while they make some progress. They've captured the last bit of Ravini, and the probing attacks into Myriad continue. Now, as we continue around the map, they've made progress here in Novo. No progress here, but a little bit here. Russia's taken some of Velk, but it's only the outskirts. But technically it's Oristopol, the village that comes onto it, but yeah, they've taken a little bit on the side here, establishing on the eastern end of the town. Here they have all but taken this little town here, which isn't even translated into English. But here they've starting to butt up against the river. Though, yeah, Ukrainians do use the rivers to move around on. But there is a road here that the Russians have been desperate to put under that full control, but it's not yet under full control. They've cut parts of it, but those parts they cut are points of contention with Ukrainian forces. Now, they've increased. Russia has advanced into Hulapol, and as we look around the map, they've taken some more territory here, and they've launched air attacks on parts of Ukraine. But really, all Ukraine can do is lash out. They cannot do significant damage to the Russians, though sooner or later the Russians are going to do significant damage to them. And they just cannot accept the fact that everything they can do can be done back to them. They think they're beyond reality. Like, America didn't lose in Afghanistan because they were outsmarted. They lost in Afghanistan because insignificant combat forces. The American force was not enough, and the Afghan forces weren't insignificant or insufficient. They just didn't have the will to fight. Now, this article, trigger warning, this article comes from the BBC. Now and again, the BBC actually do investigative reporting. What a shock, right? But see, there's a growing problem in Ukraine, self-deletion, particularly amongst its armed forces. And, my God, the BBC actually saying something negative about Ukraine, how they have lost many men in some combat actions. Wow, claiming that one unit went out and suffered 50 casualties, that men have been broken by the war. This is why I'm against the war. You notice those who are pro-war, most of them are feminists, most of them are not in Ukraine. Could you imagine, right? All these groups in Facebook, million strong army for Ukraine, I stand with Ukraine. None of them stand in Ukraine. Those who yelled the loudest, those who may ask you to sacrifice everything, sacrifice nothing. And these women have lost family members, and they've formed little organizations, and they're finding hundreds. Some say some commanders admit multiple suicides under their command. And there's nothing they can do. You have to send the soldiers out. You can't babysit them. But they're not. But these men have nothing to fight for. Now, unfortunately, I wish that these men would have surrendered. But here's the problem. Russia hands them back to Ukraine. So there's no point. That's the problem, I believe. Now, in key events, it's all propaganda. There's nothing really significant to report. Although Putin has announced that Silveti and Vosky has fallen to the Russians. Zelensky wants a new format for talks with Russia, comprised of three-way talks at the national security level. He's stalling for time. Europe wants to... Zelensky, is urging Europe to steal Russian assets. Because remember, those who demand sacrifice don't sacrifice themselves. And the loudest voices in the room suffer no consequences. That has to change. So heads have to be on the chopping block. You cannot ask anybody to do something that you are not willing to do yourself. Unfortunately, we live in a world where that is exactly the number one rule. Now, US and Russian officials have met. Now, these are only envoys. The Russians are led by Kirill Dmitriev, who is the representative for the Russian Investment Fund. One of the largest funds in the world, by the way, not a small, insignificant fund. But negotiations from Russia and the United States have met, and Vladimir Zelensky urged Washington to ramp up pressure, and pretty much fell on deaf ears on both sides. That Zelensky, the loser, does not understand losing. He's a sore loser. And I think this war eventually will teach him a painful lesson. Him and Ukraine and the whole liberal establishment are going to know what it is like to inflict suffering. Now, there are protests across Europe. There was big protests yesterday. Now, they started after I finished recording, and there wasn't much to report other than there were protests outside of Brussels. Now, it's a mixture of issues. There's culling of cows. There's crackdowns on free speech. There's people being arrested for criticising Islam. There's a whole range of issues. But the contingent of people barking about Ukraine was severely outnumbered and fled as farmers rolled over them, literally, in tractors. But police attacked the farmers who were originally marching against the culling of cows, and they got attacked by the eco nuts, and they got joined by the pro-Ukrainians. And when the farmers fought back, that's when the police came in and they said, we're breaking up the fight. No, they attacked the farmers from behind. This is Europe. This is liberalism in a nutshell. Cowardice. Backstabbing. Cowards. See, they cannot tell you to your face what they really stand for. At least we know with Putin what he stands for. He doesn't mince words. He tells you what he wants. And has told you what he wants. Now, he's warned there will be consequences if you steal his assets. Technically, his country's assets. But we really know these are private assets, not just Russian assets that have been seized. It's not your place. It is not you do not have the right to choose leaders of other countries. If you start doing so, other countries will eventually start choosing your leaders in tit-for-tat wars. Now, Reuters has been called out by Tulsi Gabbard as warmongers, seeking to undermine President Trump's peace efforts. Now, they're not the only ones. Tulsi Gabbard is just saying the quieter part out loud, that Reuters is British intelligence, just not directly calling them warmongers. Well, guess who runs British intelligence? That's right, a Ukrainian. Not a British person, a Ukrainian. Chosen specifically because she's Ukrainian. Britain, you've been replaced. And all you could do is bark about diversity. Well, diversity doesn't give you a job, does it, love? Gives them a job, you stupid muppets. But Russians strike deep and hard every day into Ukraine, heading the Ukrainian industrial complex, industry and transport services. But of course, in war, countries are large, many missiles and drones won't make it to their target, and Russia is not engaged in, well, let's see. I think, remember, look how hard America hit Iraq compared to how hit Russia's not hitting Ukraine anywhere near as hard in 1 month as Ukraine. So not hitting Ukraine as hard as the US did in Iraq. But then again, no matter how hard you hit a country, I mean, this is the problem. You want to impose your ideology on the rest of the world. And you just won't admit you're wrong. Because what happens? The entire world is ganging up to impose their ideology on you. Now, we all know it didn't start with the Crusades. We did not invade first. The Crusades, the first expeditionary forces into other countries, they were a response to hundreds of years of attacks that date back to the Roman Empire. Rome did not start as a big empire that went out and attacked other countries. They were attacked first. They were attacked by their neighbours, So they ganged up so the 7 hill tribes of Rome got together and beat the others. Then, in order, they believed, to secure peace, they basically conquered the Etruscans, who enslaved them, and then they went after the Sabine, the Celts, and others. But it didn't start with them. Okay, slavery was thrust upon them, and then other countries started attacking them. Right? This has been the horrific story of the world. Now, Pax Roma was allegedly to put an end to imperialism by being imperialistic. I know it's a twisted concept, but that is the truth, right? They thought they could bring peace to the world by conquering it under one banner. That did not work. But the globalists today, that's their obsession. To unite everything under a single ideology. No difference. The problem is, in the world of deaf and dumb, it is the man with one eye who rules. Now, it's a rather foolish on there. But basically, to make everybody equal, they try to blind you to the truth. That's what they're talking about. And those with their still have one eye open to the truth, they rise to the top. But most of the people are deaf, dumb, and blind to what's going on in the world today. Just look at my view counting and go, look at all these glazers who talk about Ukraine being such a wonder. Oh, they destroyed a Russian aircraft there every day. They destroyed a tank. They did this. They did that. It's meaningless. It's war. Of course there's going to be losses on both sides. But the fact they think destroying one Ukrainian tank is somehow, the Russians are finished. It's every day for years now. And people still lap up that garbage. It just shows you that we are living in a very precarious time. And I hope to awaken more people. But thank you, each and every one of you, especially those who stuck with the video this far. I appreciate each and every one of you. There isn't much news today. And I think as we go on, we cannot predict where it's going to end. Right? We do know there's a red line. We do know that Putin and Trump are trying to work on a deal, and that the Europeans don't want this to go ahead because they want to break up Russia. And ultimately, Europe is facing... Why? Because Europe is facing internal problems. We see more and more protests every day. We haven't heard much, but we've heard some of the protests. And we're going to see another round of protests going on tomorrow in parts of Europe. And hopefully we'll get some news of some actions taken and results. But you have Keir Starmer and a Indian woman, two people who are not British, talking about how Britain is got to embrace diversity. Of course, the people who rule over you want diversity because they're bringing in their people to rule over you. When are you going to wake up? This is why they're destroying Ukraine. Zelensky is not a Ukrainian. When are you going to realize you should never, ever, ever have rulers? And when you do, you get rid of them. Okay? Once they start to rule, that, whether it be a feminist or a fascist or a communist, at the end of the day, they are people who just want to put their boot on your neck. And how can you call yourself MGTOW or anything if you do not oppose anybody who wants to rule over you, particularly foreigners? Thank you all for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel. Pardon me. Yeah, as I said, you can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch, all my links in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you to each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.